We are on the road to WWE Payback. Going to be taking place on the first Saturday in September, September the 2nd. And of course, what's going to be the matches on the show? We've had 1 week of WWE TV. There's been some teasers of potential multiple candidates to be going against Seth Freakin Rollins. One certain match we thought would be on the show in Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso may not be happening after Jey quit WWE. Going to be talking about that particular match at the end of the video. But first off, going to go through 7 matches I predict that will be on this show. Starting with the Intercontinental Championship, Gunther defending against Chad Gable. Now for me, I would have said this would have been a Raw match, but judging on the way things have built out the last couple of weeks on WWE TV, this feels like this could be going for a PLE, and I think that could be a great decision long term, because if you look at Gunther's history of having great opponents, we've seen the hard-hitting matches with Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, but he's got great history of having great matches with smaller athletes as well. You look at the likes of Ilya Dragunov, Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, should I say Butch nowadays. Either or, Gunther's had some spectacular matches in WWE, and Chad Gable, we know how great he is in ring. To give these two an opportunity for 15 minutes on a PLE could be beautiful to watch, let's be honest here. Chad Gable already survived 5 minutes in the ring with Gunther. He did lose afterwards in a match, of course, when they continued on, but Chad Gable did win a fatal 4-way to become the #1 contender for the IC title. Of course, later in that show, Ludwig Kaiser was getting involved with Otis and, of course, Maxine Dupree as well. This needs feelings that this could be going long term. Imperium versus a Alpha Academy, not just going to be one and done, because on the build to this show now, you can do Chad and Otis against Kaiser and Vinci, perhaps even Kaiser and Gunther if you want to. Get that momentum on Chad Gable's side, get some victories over Ludwig Kaiser, perhaps Vinci as well if he's good to go in the ring once again, and then build it up to the POE where you have the big match then with Gunther versus Chad Gable. And let's not forget, the record is on the line, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, Gunther, if he won that match, would only need to get through, I think, a Monday Night Raw after that, and he would be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. Does it make it slightly predictable? Perhaps, if we're being brutally honest. I would imagine Gunther would retain, but the fact that the show as well, where it's going to be held in Philadelphia as well, could there be a chance that Kurt Angle could appear in Chad Gable's corner? Just throwing a bit of fantasy booking into this as well, that would be a really nice touch, and I think would actually just tilt the idea of maybe Chad Gable could have that breakout moment on the show. But all in all, for me, this would be a hot opener for the show as well. But I'd have Gunther to retain, of course, to break Honky Tonk Man's Intercontinental Championship record. Moving on next, we have the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. This has been carrying over since, well, before SummerSlam. Of course, injury stopped Raquel Rodriguez in storyline purposes from having a match at SummerSlam. Of course, speculation means that that match was bumped from the show, but I think they'll get their opportunity here, not on a random Monday Night Raw. Raquel Rodriguez still not cleared for action. She will get the opportunity for the championship when she is cleared, and she's now got friends on the side in the likes of Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. So that makes me feel that Rhea Ripley will be kept busy in the meantime. Liv Morgan, of course, has been ruled out of TV. Of course, Rhea Ripley took her out as well. So there was a lot of people gunning for Rhea Ripley right now, but Raquel Rodriguez is the long-term candidate going for her right now. I think this will take place on the PLE, and I do think Rhea Ripley will retain. An interesting match to keep an eye out for could be Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler, because, well, Shayna Baszler said that Becky Lynch will be a target. And of course, well, Becky versus Trish didn't happen on SummerSlam. Another match potentially that was bumped from the show will be taking place as a main event in Canada instead. I think that Becky Lynch will pick up the win here. Unfortunately, Trish could be taking a break away from WWE. Thank you, Trish. But of course, that means Becky will be open to new challenges, and Shayna Baszler did say backstage that Becky's someone she's going to come for. Now, Shayna Baszler has been kind of faint since sending Ronda Rousey packing out of WWE. I do feel though Shayna will not be a babyface moving forward. She'll be like that number 2 heel under Rhea Ripley, and I think that is a great program right now for her to have with Becky Lynch, arguably the biggest name in the Raw Women's division. Of course, we're still delaying Becky versus Rhea. Will that be for Royal Rumble? Will that be for WrestleMania? Time will tell at this stage, but one thing's for sure, to have Becky versus Shayna would be really suitable for a show like Payback, because, well, Shayna Baszler came up to the main roster going for Becky Lynch. Of course, remember WrestleMania 36, the pandemic, the COVID WrestleMania? Becky Lynch also was pregnant during that match that they had, and of course it was a shorter match. Didn't kind of pan out the way that I think many people expected. I think many thought Shayna would win the championship, be the dominant Shayna we saw in NXT. That didn't kind of work out, and Shayna since then hasn't really been the same since, and it feels like now she's been, arguably put over via Ronda Rousey on Ronda's exit from WWE, this is the best time if ever to get Shayna back up the card once again in a big meaningful program and get payback, if you will, on Becky Lynch. Now, will she get it? I'm not so sure, but you could do this over the course of 1, 2, perhaps even 3 POEs if you wanted to. The old rubber match if you want to do it. But one thing's for sure, I think this could be low-key a match that could be added to this show. Certainly something to keep an eye on. Match 4 will be LA Knight. Yeah! Versus The Miz. Now, I know LA Knight is not on Monday Night Raw, but he did appear on Raw last week. The WWE Draft LOL. But still, I really enjoyed the interaction with LA Knight and The Miz. I hope it's not a throwaway match you do on Monday Night Raw, because these two were great on the mic and they created magic together, and I think if you was to build this over a few weeks, this could be pretty exciting of what WWE could do going forward. If you go back to the Battle Royal as well, at SummerSlam, the Slim Jim Battle Royal, The Miz was eliminated via LA Knight, and of course The Miz was getting on with Grayson Waller as well. You can actually play a little bit of this build with Grayson Waller on the SmackDown side on the road to Payback. Of course, Miz will want payback for the fact he was eliminated from the Battle Royale. LA Knight kind of wants payback for the fact that, well, WWE took a chance on people like The Miz when they should have been betting on LA Knight. It feels like a suitable place to do this show as well, because you could do Raw versus SmackDown on a PLE. Everyone is under the same roof on shows like that. It would not harm the draft as much, because if LA Knight keeps turning up on Raw, that would be, although great for the audience, I'd be very happy for everyone in attendance. You get to see LA Knight and he's over like Rover right now. It just does more for protecting WWE's rules and boundaries, if you will. So to build this now on 2 opposite shows would make the most sense for me and blow it off at the Payback PLE. And of course, LA Knight would be getting the win as well. To get a singles win on a premium live event would be massive for LA Knight coming after SummerSlam as well. So that way you can really build his momentum going forward for more, let's say, higher profile rivalries after this one with The Miz. Which, let's be fair, The Miz is a double Grand Slam champion, so you're definitely doing something right if you're beating The Miz on a PLE in WWE. Following this will be the United States Championship. Rey Mysterio going against Austin Theory. The rematch after Rey Mysterio, of course, won the championship from Austin Theory on SmackDown. It was supposed to be Theory versus Santos Escobar, but Theory took out Escobar twice before the match. One attack backstage, and of course then a chop block on the way to the ring, taking out Escobar's leg. Rey Mysterio doing the classic Hogan Bret Hart from WrestleMania 9. Let me go in there and do the match. Let me go and do it. And of course, Rey Mysterio went in and won the championship. The old guard, of course, winning that title. And for me personally, I think it actually could make a lot of sense storyline wise. I know I've been calling for LA Knight to be the one to have won that US title from Theory, but you see WWE has alternative plans here, and I think this could actually play in nicely for this match on this show, because Rey Mysterio could pick up the win over Theory. He could remain United States Champion. He took it from Santos Escobar, who was meant to have that opportunity. That can cause friction between those two and a match further down the line. Whether it's before WrestleMania, whether it's, let's say, the Judgment Day with a breakup, maybe Dominic Mysterio takes over Latino World Order along with Escobar. Something crazy like that. I'm going really into the fantasy booking spectrum, but certainly for me, I think that you can have a lot of fun with Rey Mysterio, Santos Escobar. It feels like a big time match to do, and I think that way you can really crown your next top Latino star going forward in Santos Escobar, beating Rey Mysterio, because he's got all the tools to do so as well. But in the meantime, for now, Rey Mysterio as United States Champion actually makes a lot more sense than what perhaps maybe a few people may be calling for. So I would do this match as a rematch here. Austin Theory wasn't expecting the match with Rey Mysterio. Let's get him back on a premium live event as well. It's been a while since we've had him on one. I think Backlash was the last time. It does well for the United States Championship as well. So yeah, for me, I'd have this match on this show. Next, let's talk about the WWE Women's Championship. Io Sky, the champion. Look, for me, if it was my choice, I would do Io Sky versus Asuka. Asuka being the former champion, it just makes a lot of sense. It's the dream match we wanted to see for ages. Give these two ladies 20 minutes, they will tear the house down. But there is kind of a call that perhaps maybe it should be Io versus Bianca Belair, because, well, Belair won the championship at SummerSlam from Asuka, and of course then Io cashed in on Bianca Belair. Another person you can't rule out either is Charlotte Flair, because, well, on SmackDown this past week, Asuka versus Charlotte Flair happened in the singles match, and Io Sky basically just blew out the match along with the Damage Control compatriots. Bayley, of course, was the one that got physical along with Io Sky. Dakota Kai watching from the outside. So probably more than likely we could be getting a fatal 4-way. That could be the direction, because if Io Sky wants to continually show off and stop people picking up momentum to get a championship match, that could lead to the case of where the numbers go against Damage Control, which actually could be an interesting storyline. I would still have Io Sky come out the other side as champion, and I would still do all the other singles matches. We've seen Belair before, but I think Io to pick up a win this time would be great for her. Charlotte Flair would be a great match as well. And look, I want to see Io versus Asuka. That's a match I'm really looking forward to seeing. But the Fatal 4-Way, I suppose, will be the prediction I'll go with, because I think that's the one that I think will happen. As I said, if it was my choice, I would just simply do Io versus Asuka. But either way, whatever happens, Io to retain that championship for me. So last match I'm actually going to predict for this show will be for the World Heavyweight Championship. We know Roman Reigns is out with an injury right now, plus he's not even advertised for this show anyway. Roman will be taking a break, so Seth freaking Rollins, and to be fair, Seth Rollins could have a number of contenders on his case. Let's not forget, he had friction with Cody Rhodes all the way through Monday Night Raw. Even though two baby faces, these two didn't really see eye to eye, and even when Cody picked up the victory, Seth wasn't overly happy about the situation. And the fact they did kind of they saw eye to eye at the end because they had to, makes me feel like we could be building towards something in the future with Cody and Seth. But one other interesting note that happened at the end of Raw was Shinsuke Nakamura, who opted to be Seth freaking Rollins' tag team partner in the 6-man tag team match versus the Judgment Day, took the place of Sami Zayn, who was taken out backstage by JD McDonough. It's a lot to keep of details here, but whilst that had happened, Shinsuke Nakamura had clearly played Seth Rollins because he played ball during the match, but after the match when Cody's back was turned, Seth was turned as well, Nakamura struck and made his attack, turning heel fully fledged in the process and showing he does not want to be overlooked anymore. Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura would be a great match for the World Heavyweight Championship, although I would think it'd be a very predictable one. These two have faced before at Survivor Series a few years back, had a great match as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were to rerun it. There is also the option they could do the triple threat match as well between those three guys. That could be something they could look to do. It would protect, say, someone like Cody Rhodes, for example. If Seth was to retain, Cody wouldn't need to be involved in the pinfall. But we can't ignore the Judgment Day either, because Finn Balor has said this isn't over until Finn Balor gets his revenge. He didn't get it at SummerSlam, but not really because of himself. It was more because of the friction with him and Damian Priest. There is now seemingly speculation we could get a breakup in the Judgment Day, but at the meantime, these two need to look to get on the same page, and the fact they've not broke up yet after the first Monday Night Raw makes me think this story has got a few more chapters to tell before the breakup actually happens. If it was to happen on the road between now and Payback, I personally would be surprised, though a singles match between Balor and Priest certainly would be awesome for this show, would fit the narrative very, very well. But for me, what I would perhaps do, I would do a multi-man match for the championship. We've already talked about it for the Women's Championship, let's do it for the World Heavyweight Championship. WWE likes to do this from time to time. We've seen the Fatal 5-Ways, we've seen the 4-Ways. I mean, WWE did a Fatal 5-Way at Day 1 back in 2022, I believe was the last time they did it, when Big E lost the championship and Brock Lesnar won the title. That was the last time they did one of those, so they could do that sort of match here. I wouldn't be surprised if they did Seth versus Cody versus Nakamura versus Finn, but as you can see on the graphic on the screen right now, I would add Damian Priest in this match as well. Look, to be fair, he's the Money in the Bank holder, but doesn't mean he can't earn a championship opportunity in the meantime. It's almost like that's the safety net of when he wants to cash in. He can still earn an opportunity if he wants to, and I think the idea of Balor and Priest being in the same match at the same time presents an interesting storyline layer to this match. If they can actually get on and get Finn or get Priest the win of the championship, then well, they'll kind of get on, I suppose, going forward. But that's probably where the breakdown will further happen. It solidifies things even further. Then you can start doing perhaps a program between Balor and Priest on the road to Fastlane. This could be kind of a sleeper month, if you will, for Seth Rollins. He can have a few storyline narratives going on, but at the same time, he retains his championship and moves on to a singles program, perhaps moving on to Fastlane, maybe Crown Jewel, and that way it keeps everything the way it should go. As for Cody Rhodes, perhaps it can actually help build his next rivalry he's got in WWE. He's used to having adversity at this point. He's just got through Brock Lesnar. To have a clear run at the championship, for me, just doesn't fit the Cody story right now. He wants to finish that story, and for me, he needs to finish it with Roman Reigns. To do it with Seth Rollins doesn't really make sense. So for me, you could do Seth versus Cody, and Seth actually wins, but then you need to cost Cody the match at that point as well. You don't really want to have Cody picking up too many losses kind of cleanly at this stage. So for me, again, I think it just makes sense to put him in this multi-man match, and that way he has not even got to be involved in the decision. He perhaps even could cause himself to have a new feud with the likes of the Judgment Day, perhaps a returning Bray Wyatt, who knows, Randy Orton. Anything can happen in WWE in the modern day. So that's the card I've predicted, but of course I did put this card together before SmackDown last week, and I was adamant that the main event of this show was going to be Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. And of course I did the graphic and everything, as you can see there on the screen, but of course it looks like this match won't be happening at this point. Jey Uso of course did do the super kick to Jimmy Uso after Jimmy's explanation. Jimmy saying that, well, he was frightened, he loved Jey, but he didn't want to lose him. He didn't want him to turn into Roman Reigns should he become the tribal chief and the champion. Kind of didn't know what was going to lead to that win for Jey Uso, so he had to stop him from winning. I guess it's the evil that he knew, the devil he knew, rather than the devil that he didn't. At the same time, I'm still not sure how I feel about the investment of this storyline at this point. As people know, I wasn't such a big fan of the conclusion of SummerSlam, but still, to have Jimmy versus Jey in the singles match does make the most sense at this point. But one thing I could say is, with Jey quitting WWE at this moment, that could be a good thing to delay this match. WrestleVotes did say that they think that this match was supposed to happen, or hoping this will happen, at WrestleMania next year. Now, if that's going to be the case, we've got a long time to go, and we've got a long time to build this. So to actually take Jey off TV could be a clever piece of business here. When they had Rhea and Dom this time last year, they switched up the shows. They put Rhea on SmackDown, kept Dom on Raw. That way they were kept apart for the significant amount of time before they really needed to heat up that rivalry once again. So to have Jey just kind of walk out of WWE does that same thing. Do it for 1-2 months. Don't let this go completely cold though in the meantime. Jimmy needs to establish himself as a heel. Perhaps he needs to establish his part of the story as well. Maybe it could be a case of the fact that Jimmy, I don't know, at the moment plays the tweener role. He establishes himself, but maybe he wants to go for Roman, maybe he wants to go for Solo, but through the defeat and can't get the job done. Maybe that's the case of where maybe he starts, blaming the idea of, the pressure and stuff, where people thought Jey was going to do it, the fact that he couldn't do it, and then perhaps maybe the call-out start from there. I'd like to see, though, the characters defined. If we're going to get Jey return, we need to have Jey as Jey. We need to have Jimmy as Jimmy. Once we have them as defining characters and they're built up to a level, because that's where we know Jey's at that level. He's main evented SummerSlam, he main evented WrestleMania. Jimmy did do so, but Jimmy needs to have that as a single star. He's main evented WrestleMania as a tag team wrestler. I want to see more into the single style as well of Jimmy Uso, what this represents going forward, because we know right now it's kind of been an explanation, but it's either not been a believable explanation, because a heel wouldn't be believable in their actions, but at the same time Jimmy's actions speak louder than words. What we've seen at SummerSlam doesn't have to be what the explanation is he's come out and said. It's clearly jealousy. It's clear the idea that he didn't want to see Jey do perhaps what he feels he couldn't, and I think if you play that into a storyline narrative, that can sort of take things one certain way with Jimmy Uso and his character, turn him towards that more heel side, and I think it will make things make more sense going forward. If you can actually build then Jimmy up with some series of wins on SmackDown, main event Jimmy in that sort of way, if you want to take away the catchphrases that Jey had, for example, could be quite a fun storyline as well. And of course, last but not least, Rikishi had thrown his name in the hat with this. Of course, he did actually throw out he was going to be a special guest referee at Payback on social media. Apparently it was to do with a wrestling promoter. I don't fully know. I saw the post at the time, but I kind of dismissed it once I'd seen Jey Uso quit on SmackDown. But Rikishi could be actually perfect to bring in for this storyline as well. Perhaps you're trying to get these two back together, maybe try to get Jey back into WWE, try to explain to Jimmy of the fact that maybe his wrongdoings, but perhaps showing that Jimmy had this side growing up as well. The fact that, even though that Jey was a wild child, so was Jimmy. Jimmy could go off the handle, off the rails, but he was always protected, stuff like that. That could work really, really well. Perhaps even Rikishi as a special guest referee when it comes to the time and place this match actually happens could make a lot of sense as well. Look, I did have it predicted for Payback originally. I still think it would be the perfect main event for this show. At this particular moment, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, but if it is going to happen, well, WWE have to really think of an interesting way to come up with a finish, because right now, I'm happy to let this story just play out and see where it's going to go. Like I said, I wasn't the most satisfied with the SummerSlam finish. SmackDown helped a little bit with the explanation. I think that it certainly was a fun, hot angle. I certainly didn't see Jey quitting coming. To be fair, if he was going to quit, I would have preferred to gone down the Bret and Owen route, where Jey actually said, look, I don't want to fight you. It would be more like Jimmy wants to fight Jey, but Jey doesn't want to fight back. Kind of like what we had with Bret and Owen back in 93 going into 94. But at the same time, look, it's brother versus brother, twin versus twin here, and it's obviously they want to freshen things up, and certainly I'm interested to see how the story does play out. But certainly, I've been talking for a very, very long time, so I'm going to leave it now to you in the comments below. What do you think of my match card for WWE Payback 2023? Are you interested in seeing these matches? What matches do you want to see on the show if you were booking it? Yeah, get involved in the comments below right now. And of course, there'll be plenty of content coming up on the channel as well. Of course, as we go towards WWE Payback, of course, predictions will be on the channel once we do get a full match card. We've got a Payback quiz, the ultimate Payback quiz. Test your knowledge. Do you know your history of WWE Payback? Go and check out that when it does drop on the channel in a couple of days' time. And of course, the rewind this month will be Payback 2020. Well, Roman Reigns winning that Universal Championship, where day one of Roman Reigns head of the table. Certainly at that point, didn't see him being champion still now. Going to sort of see the evolution of where it all began for Roman Reigns. But that's all for this video anyway. Check out the videos that are on the side of your screen right now. Thank you for watching as always. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. Take care. Have yourselves a great day.